All right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Health Movement Podcast. I'm Derek, a certified personal trainer as well as a teacher for over 20 years.
I'm Tim. I'm a certified athletic trainer, national registered EMT.
And this week, we're going to be talking about goal setting. And we found an article on health.com about 10 goals that people can set that are going to help them out. We're going to go through those and give our opinions on it and kind of talk through each one. We'll also do a section where I have found some clips and stuff, get Tim's reaction to those, and go from there. So without any further ado, we're not doctors. So before you begin any training programs, workout programs, anything like that, please consult your physician. And if you want to see any more information on us, healthmovement.us, you can submit questions there. You can reach out to us that way on social media as well. I'm at Derek.Josephs, and Tim, you're at T Harold 77. Is that right?
17.
T Harold 17. All right.
The squish birth year,
There you go. Wow. 2017. That went fast. All right.
Yeah, I mean, the beginning of the article really starts with setting goals, right? And what some of the things that we've already talked about to this point in some of the other episodes that we've done. But it kind of highlights the SMART goal model that we've talked about, the specific, measurable, attainable, all those things. So relevant, time bound, all that stuff. So I think that's a good start in a place that people should start on how to set goals. And the other piece is trying to figure out what you're trying to do, right? And that goes along with setting that goal and setting that standard and then working off of that and building that foundation. So I think that's a good start to the article. I think some of the other things that it talks about, there's ups and downs, and I've got definitely some opinions on some of the other stuff, you know what I mean? But the number one topic that it starts with is working out at least 12 days in a month, right? And personally, I think that's especially as a baseline, I think that's a great place to start, right? That's pretty much every third day you're working out, or it's like a 2.5 day average. So
yeah,
you're
3 times a week if you can hit
you're
that.
not working out every day, and it's a good place to start. I don't think that's maybe you should stay there. I think you could increase that number from where you start from and where you should work to. But I think that's a solid beginner's goal, is to start with 12 days a month. I don't know what you feel about that.
I completely agree with that. If you can get 3 good days of workouts, and that doesn't mean on the days off you're not doing anything at all. But if you want to talk about getting in the gym, or you have bands at home or a home workout system, whatever it happens to be, if you can commit to 3 a week, that's attainable. That's not overwhelming. And then maybe push it to 4 or 5 times a week. I wouldn't get to the point where you're going every single day with a hard workout, resistance training wise. But 12 in a month, I think that's definitely achievable, and something where you can, check off each box every time you do it. And that's definitely a way to be successful and start it off. So,
well, I like how they have the subsets in there too. Like, it's schedule your sessions, right? Schedule what you're going to do in advance. Telling a friend about your goal, I think that's a great one, because it kind of holds you a little bit more accountable. So, you have a conversation with them, tell them your goal, and then a couple weeks later they're like, "Oh, well, how's that going?" It gives them something to kind of keep you accountable for, and I think that it's a good way to make it a little bit more real. I think that's
and especially like if you can find somebody to go through it with you. A lot of people who you hang out with are, you're all kind of in the same vein. So somebody else who's going to do the 12 times a month, you can really work off each other and get that going. So I like that. I definitely like that. In planning it is huge. You set it like a meeting for work. It's not something you're going to miss. Obviously there are extenuating circumstances, but you put it in the calendar, it gets done. No excuses. Just get that done and move on.
Yep.
All right. Second one, run continuously for 1 mile in 6 weeks. And that just means you start running and you don't stop till you finish a mile. It doesn't sound huge initially, but if you haven't run for a while, running a mile straight it can be tough to just jump out and do.
Well, for me, right, I think there's an abundance of people that don't even know how to walk correctly.
Yes.
So I think, and this is something that I think I've talked about it before, but Mike Boyle is a big proponent of, right? Of walk before you run, and you need to be able to properly correct your gait to be able to sustain the load and stress that you're going to put on your body while running. Starting with walking is a great way to do that, right? And to
Yeah.
increase your pace with walking, and then to make sure that you're engaging your core, engaging your glutes, doing the things that, again, we've talked about to this point in some more previous episodes, but it is something that I love this goal. Like I love trying to, and I love that it touches increasing the mileage, or,
Yeah,
start with a
it's
quarter
only by
mile.
an eighth of a mile a week too. That's all your
Yeah.
goal is. If you can increase that, you can get to a mile in 6 weeks, depending on where you're starting. So,
Yeah, yeah, and as somebody, like, again, I'm not built like a runner, right? So I've always had an issue with casually running, anyways, just from my body type, and how I some how my body is structured, right? So I
yeah,
think that's something that I I enjoy. Honestly, I enjoy walking more than I enjoy running. So, like, I'll push the pace of my walking, and then, I'll get to the point where maybe, and this is something for me that, and I think there's something later on in here about one of these other ten fitness goals or whatever, but, about running. But the big thing for me is that you're setting that goal and you're working towards it, right? And learning how to hit the benchmarks along the way. They're going to lead you into your next spot. So I do not mind this one, but I think, again, walk before you run is my biggest takeaway from this.
yeah, I like that. And then tracking your progress, I think, is huge if you're not keeping track of where you are. And that goes for any sort of goal in any area of life. If you're not keeping track of where you are, it's really hard to see improvement or see where you're going if you're ever going to get there.
Yeah, if you're not tracking it, how are you going to measure it, right? That's
Exactly. Exactly. And then, like, it goes along with you might not realize the improvements that you're making because they're small. Um, but you are, if you're continuing to do this every day, your body's adjusting, you're getting better. So you want to be able to see even the smallest improvement is an improvement in the right direction as long as you continue down that path. Um,
so. Number three is try a new workout until you find one that you like. Um,
I
I
love
think.
I love this one because I remember after my son was born, the next year I tried P90X. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's like a Tony Horton Beachbody workout where you have 90 days and there are workouts um, each day. And the Thursday was yoga. And I remember just like turning my nose. I'm like, yoga, that's not really going to help. And that was hands down the hardest workout out of all of them. And I felt the most benefit from that one just because it was something I wasn't used to. It was something new. And like, you think of flexibility and mobility and that sort of thing, but the strength you need in your quads and everything to hold those poses, it was a 90-minute session and it took the full 90 days before I could complete the 90-minute session without collapsing. So I love the idea of changing things up, and it could be like yoga to a running workout to kickboxing to like anything that's different that you haven't tried before. There are enough videos on YouTube that you can look up that have 20-minute, 30-minute sessions. You can definitely find a new one each week to try out.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's the caveat is the end of it, right? Where it says until you find something that you like,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Well, and it's like, all right, well, yeah, that's fine, and you can do that one maybe a little bit more frequently, but I do like the idea, and we've said this before, and we said this in our resistance training episode, I believe, where the variety and the diversity of movement is important to avoid injury and to work on your imbalances and work on the areas that you need to work on. So work on the stuff you're bad at. Don't just work on the stuff
Yeah.
you're good at, right?
And especially like you're right, once you find one, you can stick to it, but keep trying new things. It gets stagnant when you keep doing the same thing over and over again. And this kind of revitalizes you and gets you trying new things and getting your body moving in different ways. So I do like that one.
Yeah.
All right, number 4, we've hit this one a bunch, but average 10,000 steps a day for a month.
I mean, I love that one. You know what I mean? The big
Yeah.
thing about this is you need to track it, right? You need to have something that is measurable. So get yourself a Fitbit, get yourself an Apple Watch, something that's going to give you some sense of what you're doing on a daily basis. The other piece is there's going to be days that it's going to be hard to hit this number, and trying to get in a quick walk. I mean, the 10,000 steps a day is on average, like for my step length, is about 5 miles, somewhere around there. So, going on if I hit 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock and I'm only at 2 to 3,000 steps, I'm probably going to have to get in a couple of mile walk, 2 to 3 mile walk to try to hit that number, right? So, the biggest thing is being able to measure that and count that and be consistent. And you may not get it every day, but if you get it 27 out of 30 days a month, that's a big improvement.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me when you mentioned like the fitness tracker, Fitbit or Apple Watch. You had said something a couple episodes ago, which was awesome. You can either invest now in your health and fitness, or you have to invest in your illness. So, an Apple Watch, Fitbit, some of those are a little on the expensive side, but you can get a fitness tracker for $20 that you wear on your wrist and it counts your
Yeah,
steps.
just
A ton of other
pedometer,
things.
something that you put on your shoe or your hip or something. Those are fairly cheap and inexpensive too. So just something that gives you an idea of how many steps you're getting in a day is
Yeah.
is
And
the
if it's
idea.
not 100% accurate, that doesn't really matter. It's not going to be off by 5,000 steps. And there are going to be days you might be traveling and you're on a plane for 6, 8 hours and you're waiting at the airport. You can't get those steps in, but it's the average. So you have one off day, that's okay. It's going to happen, but you just ramp it up on the other days around it.
And the idea is really just move, right? And especially if you're a more sedentary work life, right? If you sit at a desk, if you're not moving, or even if you're traveling, like you're a salesman or something like that, and you're in a car all day, those are more sedentary type of jobs, and those are things that you need to find a way to offset that and balance that out. Because if you just sit sedentary, it's going to have a pretty significantly, it's going to be a pretty detrimental effect to your overall health.
Yeah.
All right, what do we got for the next one? We got do a set number of push-ups in 4 to 6 weeks.
I like this with a huge caveat. Or maybe that's not the right word, but you know what I mean. There's a huge stipulation to this one where if all you're doing is push ups every day, the imbalance you're going to get in terms of tightness in your chest, shoulders rounding forward, all that, you need to counter it with pull ups. And I
Mm-hmm.
like if you're trying to hit X amount of pull ups and X amount of push ups every day, and maybe every other day, but you need to counter whatever you're doing. I like it, but I think we talked about it before, like the 100 push-up challenge that people have where they try and do 100 a day, and that's their focus. And then by the end of it, their shoulders are all out of alignment, and it just messes you up.
I do like how they talk about progressing into it, starting with knee push-ups, but it doesn't even
Yeah.
have to be knee push-ups, right? It could be you put a box up against the wall or even against the table and you start there, right? Or a counter or something like that. And then you work your way to a more horizontal position, right? And those are ways to work on progressing. But I agree with you. Just doing a one imbalanced one way movement isn't going to be the most beneficial thing for you. You need a more well-rounded, structured approach. It's doing something, and again, I
Yeah.
think I've said it before. Something's better than nothing, but you got to try to balance it out a little bit too.
Yeah, I agree. Um, and just quickly on the knee push-up thing, I was working with a couple clients, and we would do, they do a set on the bench or whatever it is, chest, and then you do kind of a burnout sometimes, and you just rep as many push-ups as you can afterwards. And I always tell them, get 3 more on your knees once you think you're done, because and don't, and even if you can't do 10 push-ups regularly, get the knee ones, start doing those. You like, don't worry about what it looks like. It's a progression, and it's not a challenge against anybody else. It's where are you today and where do you want to get to in the future, and you'll see an improvement if you're willing to put the time and effort in.
Yeah.
All right, the next one I think you're gonna love. This is right up your alley. But rest for 8 full days monthly.
So, I mean, I agree. right? You
But
do need your rest, right?
I know how you're going to
Eight
phrase
eight
this.
days 8 days isn't bad, right? 8 days is a significant amount, but you shouldn't just be resting, right? You shouldn't be doing anything. You shouldn't be passively just sitting there. You
Yeah.
need to work on active recovery, right? And in checking the boxes that we talked about for recovery, really making sure you're staying hydrated, really still focusing on your nutrition. Just because you're not working out like on a weekend, right? This is where people tend to fall off is those rest days, those days where like, this is where I can kind of step outside of my program and step outside of what I'm doing. And it's okay every once in a while. It's not okay 8 days a month. You know what I mean? And that's a thing where you need to really focus in on the active part of that
Mm.
recovery, of that rest. And that doesn't mean you don't have any days that are just fully rest. Maybe you have a couple a month, 3 to 4 a month where you're, just kind of chilling and sitting on the couch. We're hitting football season here, maybe spending a, Sunday afternoon on the couch
Yeah.
watching football. But those are things that you need to be in. Again, it's just being an active participant in your health and in your rest, that you don't just have to sit there.
Yeah, I think if it said 8 active recovery days a month, that would be better because I think a rest day some people look at as I'm just sitting on my butt and chilling.
Yeah,
Uh,
and this kind of leads into what the next one is going to be too a little bit here. So the next one is stretch for 15 minutes after each workout, right? And I was kind of gonna, this kind of goes with the active recovery piece of what we were talking about, right? So this is great pre and post workout. I think stretching has its place. I also think foam rolling and stretching have their place.
yeah,
They might be a little beaten down a little bit. I think the effect of them isn't as grandiose as what it might be portrayed as sometimes. It does have a good effect, but, I think functional training and all that stuff it has its place too, as far as what you're doing and what you're, how you're recovering and stuff like that. So your training very much affects your recovery. And then, I think the stretching is beneficial. I think when you say stretching, people just tend to stick from the hips down. Don't forget about your upper body, right? Don't forget about your cervical segment, your neck, your shoulders, all those areas that we still use. Just because we're not walking on them all day, it doesn't mean that they don't need to be, addressed with soft tissue work and some mobility work and all that kind of stuff.
yeah. I,
I
I I
also
think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, no, it's okay. No, I think the other piece to it too is an active stretch, right? Like
That's what I was going to say.
people love to passively stretch, but I think an active stretch is a good way to activate the muscle group, the antagonist muscle group of what you're stretching. So you're more naturally moving through that range of motion versus just passively moving that body part through the range of motion. So that's all I was going to
Yeah,
say. I didn't
I
mean to
was.
cut you off.
A lot of times people will just hit the static stretching where they hold something for 30 seconds. But if you can do more dynamic stretching where you're going through those movements and getting your body limber, I think that's better. And especially before like a game or something like that, you see people just do the static stretching where the thing that's going to be helpful for you is the dynamic stretching where you're getting the body moving the way you're going to need it to move.
Mhm.
So I like that one. Hold a 1 minute plank. This is number 8. Hold a 1 minute plank in 30 days.
I mean, I think this is a great one. I think planks are a great way to strengthen your core, again, in a more functional manner. Not the biggest proponent for um, core strengthening that's going to shorten your hip flexors, especially when we're a society that sits a lot nowadays and your hip flexors are already in a shortened position. So like crunches and sit ups and stuff like that are really hip flexor dominant. So I think a way to do that a little bit more functionally is through a plank. The other thing about planks is it's not just two arms on the ground and you're just sitting there, right? There are so
Yeah.
many different plank variations that you can do and so many different ways to work on that you can do, even a body saw. A body saw is like a plank variation. Doing things with bands and resistance and changing lines of pull. I think these are great ways to, even a side plank. I'm a huge proponent for a
Yes.
side plank because that's an inline stability exercise that really focuses on our ability to use our core and our hips to functionally support our our core, but we don't realize how much our core actually supports the rest of our body. Again, I'm a big middle out guy. I think the your core and hip stability is a great way to support the rest of your anatomy, especially your extrinsic anatomy, your limbs, your arms, your legs, all that kind of stuff. So, huge proponent for core for planks, and it doesn't just have to be a normal plank; it could be any kind of variation.
Yeah, I think the more variation, the better too. And you're right. There are tons of different ones that you can do that hit all different angles of the core. So I like that one.
Next one: drink 2 to 3 liters of water a day for a month.
That
Not why a month? Like this is my
yeah,
whole thing is like why a month? This should be part of your day to day routine. I think 2 to 3 liters is also a little vague. And we've talked about it before. I tell people like half your body weight in fluid ounces, and then however much you're exercising, you should be adding 4 to 6 ounces for every 15 minutes of work. So an hour workout should be somewhere between 16 and 24 ounces of water extra on top of that half your body weight in fluid ounces to try to put some of that water back or some of that fluid that you lost through sweat loss or exercise. So
yeah.
um, I think the big thing for me was like, it's a month. You're only going to do it for a month. Like it shouldn't be, it
Yeah,
should be
this is
consistent.
we talk about changing lifestyle and all that. This is a forever thing. You should be in the same, and your body might have a bit of an adjustment period if you're not used to drinking much water and you start sucking down 2 or 3 liters. You're gonna be hitting the restroom a lot.
Well, that's I think the biggest thing I hear from people, especially like older clientele, that as you get older, you do tend to hit the bathroom a little bit more. So I think that has to be a little bit more gradual throughout the day. The other thing I tell, if you add electrolytes, it does kind of help to retain some of that water a little bit more. So that could be something that helps to reduce the amount of times that you have to urinate throughout the day. But the biggest thing is just start somewhere. It doesn't even have to be half your body weight in fluid ounces. It's if you're not even at a quarter of your body weight, start there. Start at a quarter, work your way to a third, then go to a half. Like it should be a progression type of thing. Like if you go 0 to 100, you're going to be going to the bathroom all
Yeah,
day.
you're gonna be miserable.
So just start to slowly progress that over time, and you're going to start. The biggest thing is you're going to start to realize like how much better you feel when you consistently drink water. Like I think
Yeah,
half of the reason people feel like garbage sometimes is because they're dehydrated and they don't even realize it. And I tell people like if you're thirsty, it's already too late.
yeah.
If you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. So try to stay on top of it. Don't just drink when you're thirsty.
And we've talked a few times about this. You got to track it. Like you don't necessarily have to write it down, but if you have a bottle that you use or a Yeti or whatever you drink out of, and you know it's 32 ounces, you might have to make sure you're filling it 3, 4 times a day, depending on how many ounces you need. But that's an easy track. Well, you should be
Yeah.
able to count to four and remember it. And if you forget, have a little extra. Um,
hmm
but yeah. All right. Next one. Complete a 5K race in 3 months. That doesn't mean it takes you 3 months to run the race, but to build up 3 months out, you're going to have a 5K race.
I think this is a great one because, and it doesn't just have to be a 5K. I think that's the other piece is it could be any sort of fitness related goal, right? It could be this is something like where me and my wife talk about, do we want to do a Spartan race or do we want to do a Tough Mudder or just something that's gonna kind of light a spark or light a fire under you to give you something to train for. And I think once you realize a lot of the time it has a snowball effect. Like once you scratch that itch, then it's going to start to kind
Mm.
of snowball into other things, right? So, and this is for, think about us. Like we play in the softball league. Or if you got a hockey, men's hockey league that you play in that you want to try to get in shape for, things like that you want to set a benchmark and try to work toward. I think it's a great way to do it. And again, it holds you accountable. You have this finite date of I need to be
Yep.
where I want to be by this point, right? So you have to, and it gives you a little bit more of a structure to your training too, which is hugely beneficial.
Yeah, and there's a monetary incentive too, is if you have to pay for a race. And like a 5K is not that expensive, but if you're jumping into a Spartan race or something like that, those are usually a little pricier. But those are also things you do with people. A lot of the time you can do it solo, but if you have a group of people who are like, all right, we're doing this, you've got that group mentality too, where you're pushing each other and you're getting each other ready for it. So I think that's a good one. I think I said 12 at the beginning. I don't know how I got that number. That was number 10. So that was the last one there. But again, these all go back to setting goals. You got to look at where you want to be and look at what you have to do to get there. Keep track of it. Have a deadline. Have it, a specific time where you want to complete this by, and share it with people. Tell people what you're trying to do. I mean, you don't have to shout it from the rooftops, but like, let somebody close to you know, like, hey, this is my goal. You want to do it with me, or you want to, keep me accountable, whatever you want to do. But you gotta
And
share it.
keep it within that SMART goal format, right? And you can even go through if you've never done it before. There's plenty of models online that you can look into. Just have to Google it, but you can take the template and just how is it specific? How are you going to measure it? Is it attainable? What's the relevancy of it, and what's the amount of time, right? So that's where you follow that model, and it's going to make it so it's tailored to what you are specifically looking for, and that's at the end of the day, who else are you doing that for except for yourself, right?
Yeah,
And maybe it is for someone else, right? For me, my goals are to stay active because I want to keep up with my little guy, right? So that's a big thing that to me means a lot, and it means it means that I have to stay active and I have to take care of myself to be able to take care of him and do the things that I want to do with him and my family. So that at the end of the day, like that is for me, but it's also for them, and I think that's you have to look at your why and what is your why.
yeah, I like that. All right, the next section we have, I picked. I don't know if we'll go through all four, but I picked some clips here that Tim hasn't seen yet that I'm going to play and just get an instant reaction to it. This first one is a line from a book. My whole school read a book. Each class read the book. We kind of had a big thing about it because there's a lot of mindset stuff in there. And the book is called, they mention in the quote, it's like the boy, the horse, the fox, and the mole, maybe. And there are a lot of one liners in there about mindset and that sort of stuff. So I'm going to play this. Let me know what you think about it.
The best advice I've ever heard for overthinkers is this. It's a quote that has helped me immeasurably, and it's from a book called The Horse, the Boy, the Fox, and the Mole. And one of my favorite quotes out of the whole book is, a boy and a horse are in the woods. And a boy says to the horse, I can't see a way through. And the horse says, can you see your next step? And the boy says, yeah. And the horse says, then just take that.
All right. Yeah. So that's the end of that one. What do you think of that one?
I don't think horses can talk. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think that's the biggest thing, right? Is sometimes you're not going to see the forest through the trees, and you have to kind of trust the process, right? And to me, it's that's where having a good plan in place and having a good outline of where you're trying to go. Sometimes you're not always going to see it. Sometimes it's going to be the worst workout you've ever had, but you showed up, you were there, right? And or the other, it's the same thing. You can apply that to daily practices of going to work or, getting to your routine is like, it's never going to be transparent, right? You're going to have to work through some adversity. You're going to have to work through some tough time to get where you want to be, and just trust the process is the biggest thing there.
Yep. All right. This next one is, I believe this guy's name is
A
Chris
negative
Williamson.
mind will find.
Oh, sorry, I started too soon. This is talking about mindset, but you can flip this into the positive pretty quickly. So here we go.
A negative mind will find any way to make the world fit his priors.
Right.
So if you go into a situation adamant that you are unlovable, unwanted, broken, flawed, insufficient, you will manage to warp reality to be able to fit what you already believe.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one is that goes back to your growth versus fixed mindset, right? If a fixed mindset is and you will find you'll settle back into that groove of whatever you're looking for, and you're going to achieve what you think you can achieve, good or bad. So I think that's a one where, and I think a lot of the times when you have that negative mindset, you don't even realize you have it. And I think being aware of it is half the battle. So I think, just trying to make sure that you're trying to work towards that positive outlook and positive affirmation to yourself before, your self-talk is where everything starts. So if you're being negative to yourself, it's gonna continue to head that direction. So you really want to try to work toward being a positive outlook type of person, even when you don't think anything could be positive. And I think that's a hard thing to do sometimes, but at the same time, it's definitely the best for you overall.
Yeah. I have a quote up in my class that I just leave there all year. And it says, you can complain because roses have thorns, or you can be grateful because thorn bushes have roses. So you're looking at the same exact thing, and it's just what sort of mindset, how you're going to frame how you see things, your perspective, which we talk a lot about.
Yep.
But if you can go in and finding the positives and look at the successes, it's gonna have a huge impact on your life overall. All right, here's the third one. And to be honest, I don't remember which one this is, so we're just gonna see it.
Dustin texted me one day. Poirier texted me. He's like, "You can't wait for everything to be okay to live your life." That's what and it was
Yeah, that was a quick one. You can't wait for every day or everything to be perfect to live your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
there we go.
life goes on even when things are hard, right? And everybody's going through stuff that we don't know about. And I think that is something that we've all experienced, right? And I think it's something where I need to stop saying right. I say it after every sentence.
It hasn't been as bad this week. It hasn't.
Yeah. Well, it's because I've cognitively tried to say it, not say it. But yeah, it's something where love Theo Vaughn, by the way.
Yeah.
But he's talking about Dustin Poirier too, right? I think.
Yep.
And
he's on the Rogan show, so it's all those guys.
Yeah. So, but at the same time, that is something where you still have to show up, you still have to do the work, whether you want to or not. And if you don't show up and you don't do the work, it's going to be, and this goes back to the you talking about the choose your hard, right? And it's like, it's where, the whole thing is what are you trying to do? Where are you trying to go? What's going to get you there? And what's going to be in your way? And sometimes you don't even know what's going to be an obstacle or what's going to be something that's going to open you up to adversity. But adversity is all about how you react to it and how you respond. And just showing up is half the battle, and just, doing your work, putting in the time. And that's where you're going to see the most benefit and the most result.
Yeah, there was I talked to a few people this week, potential clients, and there was a theme, and I don't know what it was about this week where the theme was there, but I heard a few different times like things are just really busy right now, or life's really hectic. And I say, like, well, how was it 2 years ago? How was it 5 years ago? Like, it was hectic. I'm like, it's always going to be hectic, and it's always going to be crazy. That's life. It's never like calm and slow and good and at a pace where things are going to be easy to make changes. So you have to accept the fact that you're going to have to make certain changes and look at things a little bit differently if you want to make the adjustment in your life and try and set new goals and achieve new things you haven't yet. You just have to learn to adapt to what you need to adapt to. So, all right, here's the last one.
The more I listen to this, the better my life gets. If they don't have what you want, don't listen to what they say. There's no greater waste of time than justifying your actions to people who have a life you don't want.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no, I think. I agree, but I think at the same time, like, that's just putting your, yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is don't put your energy into people that are going to be negative toward what you're, and I think constructive criticism it has its place. And I think
Oh, absolutely.
people's opinions have their place. And I think sometimes if it's a negative opinion, it could be coming from a positive place, right? And I think that's where that's where surrounding yourself with the people that have a similar mindset or a similar outlook to you is important. And also people that have high standing goals or high functioning individuals will help you to pull you up to where you want to be versus people below you that are trying to drag you down. And,
Yeah.
it's all relative and it's all circumstantial too, I think.
I think a lot of that too comes from like when you go to take, and I'm saying like, I'm hearing it now too. You've got to surround the people the people you're getting help from should be people who are where you want to get to, or people who are on the same path that you're trying to take. If your goal is getting, in good shape and eating healthy and getting enough rest and water and all that, and you're taking advice from somebody who doesn't live that life, that advice doesn't really hold as much weight as somebody who's been through it before and knows what they're talking about. And that goes with any, like if you're taking financial advice from your uncle who's broke and has wasted all their money, like maybe that's not the person you should take advice from financially. They love you, I'm sure, but maybe not the best people to listen to. So,
Yeah.
All right. Well, that brings this episode to an end. Thank you again for showing up. We didn't quite get to 10 countries. We're still sitting at 7, but that's all right. Spread the word to all your friends all around the globe.
Get the questions coming in too. I think that's something that we really want to push is questions coming in from listeners and people that have some really stuff that is personal to them that maybe we could work through and give some opinions on or some advice on.
Yeah, absolutely. So hop over on the website. There's places to put questions in there if you want to talk to us individually about any goals you're going through or help with maybe a journey that you got going forward. You can get in touch with us there. But we'll keep coming at you. We'll see you guys next week as well. We appreciate the heck out of all of you taking the time to listen. We know that's the most valuable thing that you can give. So that's it. Signing off.
Have a great week.
Bye.